Thank you for taking time to view this video. It's all about my controversial new book, Law in 4. I'm Howard Gray, an English barrister. I live in Milford, New Hampshire. So what is the controversy? Simply put, it takes too long to become an attorney at law. And why is this? Well, the undergraduate program before you even get into law school takes 4 years. That's a lot of money, a lot of time. And perhaps worst of all, it's not particularly relevant what you take in that program towards any future practice of the law. That probably more than anything else impugns the process and the practice. It can be changed, and frankly, it should be. So what does my book offer? Besides criticising these things, somewhat mildly in my opinion, there's more that could be said more trenchantly about the problem of undergraduate qualifications for the law here in the States. I offer you a solution. You can walk around the undergraduate program completely if you wish to do so. And here's how you would do it. Qualify in England. It's a common law jurisdiction. It is the original common law jurisdiction. It's relatively easy. It's not particularly expensive compared with the United States, and it's an awful lot quicker. How so, you ask? Well, let me just quickly go over what you have to do here in America to qualify in outline. 4 years undergraduate, 3.5 years for your Juris Doctorate, and about 6 months to a year at worst to get your license to practice when you take the state bar examinations. So we're looking at 7.5 to 8 years as the norm, I suspect. It may be a little less if you find some way through the system. There are a few courses for 2 years instead of 3 years for the Juris Doctorate, but there are only a few. For the majority, it is what it is. Let's contrast that with the United Kingdom. Well, first feature you have to understand is that you go directly to law school from high school in the UK, and you can do the same. Cross the Atlantic and start law school directly from high school. We normally have a 3-year Bachelor of Law program, and this is, of course, directly equivalent to your Juris Doctorate, which, of course, used to be called the Bachelor of Laws degree. Now, that's not everything here. The word "for" appears in the title of my book, doesn't it? Well, here's where it comes from, in part. We now have a 2-year bachelor's degree available. It's offered by 5 university institutions. I think there will be more in due course. There is a huge demand for it. How do they do it? Well, the method is very simple. Take the 3rd year, split it in half, add it back to the summer vacation period in each of those years, and guess what? You get a Bachelor of Laws degree in 2 years. Oh, by the way, it's just as good as a 3-year degree so far as qualifying as a professional in the UK. It may cause you a certain amount of trouble with the American bars out there. Some of them are not going to like it. The fact it's adequate to qualify in Britain, well, they're not interested in that because you're trying to get there a little faster than your compatriots back there in the States. So they're going to throw a few curveballs at you. Don't tolerate it. Now, what happens next? Well, there are 2 professions in Britain, solicitor and barrister. I'm not going to talk much about solicitors, save to say this. For some of you, that will be an option. Read my book and you'll see why. So let's go back to qualifying as a barrister. It's 2 years in professional training after your undergraduate program for your Bachelor of Laws. It comes in 2 parts, obviously. The first part is the Bar Professional Training Course. This is a thorough course on how to be an advocate in court, dealing with things like evidence, procedure and practice, drafting documents, so on and so forth. Follow the links in my book, and all of them available, of course, on my website, which is worldwideweb.lawin4.com. So let's just go over that one more time. It's a program training you to be a courtroom lawyer. Then what? Well, we don't think that the academic stuff is enough to make you a lawyer. Solicitors take 2 extra years in a training contract, by the way. So being a barrister is 1 year for your pupillage. It's an apprenticeship. How does this work? Well, your first 6 months, you'll basically go to the practice of your pupil master or pupil mistress. In other words, you follow them around. They show you what they do. And their job is to instruct you in the practicalities of being an advocate, and doing all the paperwork and all the stuff that you need to know as best as can be managed in 6 months. After that, well, you go solo. You go to court. You will, of course, be supervised. You get pep talks from your pupil master or pupil mistress, and of course you get the post-mortems after you come back from the day out at trial or whatever application you make. You'll probably start with bail applications or adjournments, what you would call a continuance. That gets you in the swing of how to be an advocate and speak in court. Yes, it's a little terrifying because it's not like acting. You really have to say something, you need to get it right, and more to the point, it can have catastrophic consequences for your client if you screw it up. It's a little, how should I put it, a little hairy for the first 2 or 3 days. I can remember it well. So what next? Well, you get a practicing certificate from the Bar Council in England. This is a most important document. It proves you are what you say you are, a barrister at law. Then what? Well, for years now, English lawyers, solicitors and barristers, take bar prep here in London. Oh yes, they have it here in London, and there's an increasing demand for it. They take the bar prep, cross the Atlantic and sit usually the New York State Bar, sometimes California and other bars, obviously. And those that pass become double qualified. And here's what should really annoy you a little bit. These people are doing it years ahead of you folks back in the States. They get their degrees earlier, and now even earlier than before, so it's from 5 years down to 4.5 or so, 4 years. And bingo, once they've got everything tucked away in terms of qualification, they cross the Atlantic after their bar prep and take your exams and pass them. These are highly motivated people, of course. No one gets into this game to double qualify unless you are. Right, you can do the same thing, and that's what my book is all about. And you can see my book, of course, on World Wide Web, lawinfor.com. Go and buy it and read it. It's a fascinating read, I think. It took me a great deal of pleasure digging in and researching all the stuff I thought was necessary to put in the book. Yes, I deal with all the stuff about what you have to do to apply to college in the UK. All about the basics, nuts and bolts of immigration. I don't cover everything. It's impossible in a small book of this sort. It's over 140 plus pages, and you have to do some of the research yourself, hence the links. They're on my website, and there will be an electronic version in the not too distant future of my book. Now, Law in 4 is really the kind of manual you will need to get the grounding in order to approach this as a possible practical way to become an attorney at law quickly. How quick? Well, let me just cover it in the following way. If you manage to get on one of the intensive bachelor's degree programs, you will be a barrister in about 4 years from the day you leave high school, something of that order, a month or two, in excess of that probably. Then you will be an attorney at law shortly thereafter, if you so choose. Your compatriots who went to law school concurrently with you, well, they're still at law school probably for the better part of another couple of years. So you've got a huge leg up on them. Now, enough of all of this. Thank you very, very much for taking time to listen to what I've got to say. Don't forget, the book is Law in 4, the website, World Wide Web, lawinfor.com. And thank you for your time.